Now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh alongside Gene Collier, who will join us in just a couple moments, and we're going to be talking about Le'Veon Bell, I'd imagine, this entire show. So if you want to talk about Bell and what the Steelers should do, they don't have too many options. 412-575-2600 is the number. The Bucs did win. Penn State has a huge game this Saturday, but Le'Veon Bell is the big subject today, Gene. They don't really have too many options. You don't know when Le'Veon Bell is coming here. The Steelers didn't. It seems like being in that locker room today and talking to guys that they had no clue that this was going to happen. They figured he would be here or bet that he would be here Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Yeah,
it was a really extraordinary day in the Steelers locker room. Not only were the players surprised by Le'Veon Bell's absence, Rich, but they were really angered.
Yeah.
A number of them were really angered by it. And I don't know if that was just because they fully expected him to do exactly what he did last year and, you know, maybe stretch it a day or two. But they certainly didn't expect this. I mean, it certainly looks like he won't play at Cleveland. And, you know, I suppose they have a right to be angry. It's one thing to say that you should take advantage of the system to get everything you can. That's what he's doing. But now he's really pushed it into an area where none of the Steelers, I thought, and really none of us thought it would go. I expected him to be here Monday, and I expected him to be here Wednesday.
Yeah, and it feels like that these guys felt like they were let down, especially offensive linemen. Those are the guys that we all talked to today. I mean, I talked to Marquise Pouncey. We did our cameras, and he was outspoken. Ed Bouchette, your colleague, talked to Ramon Foster, I think, who was the most outspoken. I mean, he said, quote to Ed, "What do? Here's a guy who doesn't give a damn. I guess we'll treat him as such. I just hate that it came to this." He also said he's making 7 times what I make, twice as much as Al is making, and we're the guys who do it for him. You know, Marquise Pouncey was close to being that outspoken, but I would have never thought this. I can't even remember teammates. They weren't even like this with LeGarrette Blount or James Harrison.
No, that's right. And David DeCastro spoke out strongly as well. So that's what I mean. It was an extraordinary day. I never really quite seen that, and I didn't anticipate it either.
So my first question to you is, how can they mend the fence here? Can he walk back in his locker room and they can hug it out and everything would be okay? I mean, DeCastro said it's going to be awkward. I would feel like I wouldn't be able to walk back in that locker room again.
Well, yeah, but we're, you know, operating on a different wavelength a lot of times, and certainly at a different level of salary. So, you know, it's hard to predict, you know, what kind of reception he'll get if and when he comes here. But, you know, it doesn't appear like it's going to be a good one.
And it doesn't appear like he's going to arrive anytime soon. His agent, Adisa Bakari, was on CSM radio today and basically said, hey, read between the lines when asked, what would you do if you were Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert? And he posed that question back to the guys. And they know that he's going to get a bulk of the carries and a bulk of this offense. So reading that story, listening to that interview, I wouldn't expect him to be here. I could see him missing the first 10 weeks.
I didn't know how to interpret that at all.
It was very vague and
cryptic. I don't know what his agent is talking about. I mean, if he has something to say it. You know, this doesn't make sense to me.
So here's my question, and I posed it on Twitter earlier today. It was our KDK question of the day. Would you trade Le'Veon Bell if you know, when he does sign? Now, he has to sign his tender before they could trade him. I don't know if there would be any takers because it's a big salary and how they could work things out. But, I mean, it seems like he is just not a good fit for this team anymore. I know 85% of we had a ton of votes, and 85% want him out of town already, the fans.
Yeah, well, the Steelers do not react emotionally on these things. You know, they'll get him here at some point, and at some point, you know, he'll sign, and then they'll realize that he's not an easy player to trade. A lot of teams, you know, don't want that cap hit and don't want a guy with a couple of discipline strikes against him. So I don't know if that's going to be an option at all. But I can pretty much guarantee that they won't base what they're going to do with him on the emotions of today.
All right, so let me ask you one more question about Le'Veon Bell. Do you think what would happen if the Steelers running back by committee? Because I guess James Conner is going to get the majority. Then Stephen Ridley, Jalen Samuels. Say they do really well, and the Steelers win 9 of the first 10 games or something, and they don't skip a beat, and Bell's still not here. What happens in that scenario, do you think? Do they just throw him back in there and he's our guy, or do they just sit him on the bench?
Well, I don't know. You don't end up paying $7.5 million not to play. I don't know. It'll depend on, how it goes with James Conner and these other backs.
And we bring up the point, I know you and I have talked about it a bunch of times on this show, that look at the last 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl. It was a running back by committee. Franchise running backs you don't see too often in the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl. So
yeah, there's no point in diminishing what Le'Veon Bell has done. He's been a great player for the Steelers, but if you look at his last year, there are holes in his performance. He had 400-yard-plus for the Steelers all year long. The Jaguars, for example, scored more touchdowns in Heinz Field on January 14th than Le'Veon Bell scored between October 18th and December 17th. Even with Le'Veon Bell, the Steelers won by 3 points at Cleveland last year, and Cleveland had more rush yards per game than the Steelers did all year. He's a very good player, but is he indispensable? I don't know if I'm going that far.
All right. Well, we got to take a break. We're going to take your phone calls. I want to hear you guys, what you have to say about Le'Veon Bell. You can sound off at 412-575-2600 is the number. You can tweet me at Richie Walsh or at Gene Collier. Back in a couple minutes.
The Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call is brought to you by Ireland Contracting, Pittsburgh's #1 home exterior expert in roofing, siding, windows, and gutters.